So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Shannon. I work in the marketing department. And in just a moment, Shannon Mersney is going to take us through a live demo of Load Assist dashboard as well as supply event. This is a really informal presentation, so please feel free to ask questions along the way. You all should be unmuted. Feel free to mute yourself if you're trying to multitask. If you would feel more comfortable submitting a question in the Q&A window, you certainly do that. It can be found in the bottom right-hand part of your screen. So without further ado, unless, Michelle, you want to say anything else, I think we should let Shannon Mersney just take it away.
Get started, absolutely.
All right.
Let me share my screen. By the way, if you haven't met me, I am Shannon Mersney. I'm a customer success manager at DTN, kind of the tabs expert. So that's why I'm kind of going through this. Can everybody see? I hope I haven't shared yet.
Yes, I can see.
Yes.
Perfect. And again, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions you want to ask as I'm going through this. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the supply event module. Now, what the supply event module in tabs allows you to do is it allows you to provide information about both planned and unplanned terminal disruptions that you would want to send out to individuals that need to know that, whether that be anybody that's lifting at that terminal, whether it be terminal personnel, whether it be internal people, but it allows you to send out messages, alert messages with that information on it, but it will also show up in a few other places, both within tabs, those supply events, and also on an allocation viewer if you have one of those. So basically the way the supply event module works is it's under the data management section and it's under supply events. And I'll kind of show you the setup here in a minute, but the supply event itself, in order to create a new one, I'll get into that piece of it first, is we just hit add. And the supply events themselves are done at a terminal or terminal group level, a channel level, and at a product or product group level. So I'll just go through one of these real quick. In order to create a new one, you just pick a terminal. I'm just going to pick Amarillo. I've already got one set up here, but I'll just show you how this is set up. So so it can be multiple terminals also, but you can do Amarillo. You can pick a channel. I'm going to leave it at all channels right now. The product group, I'm just going to say, good one here. I'm just going to say premium. So there's something wrong with premium that you want to send out. You have an internal description, which is just going to show up in tabs. It's not going to show up to customers or in the alert itself. There's a visibility description, which means that if you have an allocation viewer, if the outage or the supply event shows on there, that's what's going to show up in the visibility description. You can choose some backup terminals if you want. So in this case, I'll just see what we have available in Texas. See, Abilene can be our backup terminal. And then you have different setups that you can do. In this particular one, I'm going to say event type is going to be a planned supply outage. So this is something that's coming up for premium. Maybe, something's happening where they won't be able to load it at this particular terminal. So I'm going to say planned supply outage. You can put a start date in there and you can have an end date in there. And these end dates actually work with the supply event itself on when those alerts get sent out. So if I put this where I know the start date is going to be on the 28th at a particular time, and it's going to end, say on Friday, so it's only going to be a week, at a particular time, you can put that terminal status as out, right, as red. So when they see it on the allocation viewer, it's going to show as red. Within tabs itself, it would show as red. And then what's going to happen is you can set it up to schedule. So when a new event is created, an alert will be sent out. And this is what these check marks are. So a new alert will be sent out when it's created. So they have so they know when this is actually going to happen, especially if it's in the future. And you can do it to days in advance. So you want to do it, 2 days in advance also. So when it's created and 2 days in advance. When the event actually starts, they'll get another alert saying that event is start and then premium is out in this particular case at this particular terminal. And then there's going to be an end date and time. So when it actually ends, when that expire date comes, another alert's going to send out saying that supply event is over. Now the message itself that's going to be sent in these alerts is going to be put down here. Again, this is just a test account, but the message can be put here. Whatever that message is, whether it's just one lane, it's just a free form text, so you can put all the text in there and any details that you want in that supply event. And then you hit save. And what that does is at that point it's going to send out that first alert. And I'll get into who that's going to send out to here in a second. But there's some other different options that we can do on here when creating these supply events. When this supply event is over, there's actually a resolution tab. And you can set up different resolution codes if you want. In this case, I'll just put demand on portal. You can put some details about it. And then you can even put an event cost in dollars and an impact amount in gallons if you want to. That way you can go back and do reporting on these outages, and this will be in the resolution section itself. Now, on the alert section, once those alerts start getting sent out, you would be able to tell who that, I haven't set this one up, of course, but who this actually would go out to. So in this case, it would be set up for all terminals, and it would be set up for Amarillo and who would get that alert. So you'd be able to see who that actually went out to. So that's just another tab that's on there. Now, like I said before, this is sending out via an alert, right? So these alerts have to be set up. So under the alert section, there is a supply event alert that needs to be set up. So of course you would have to set up all of the contacts that you want this sent to, both internal and external. Now, if you already have an allocation viewer and it has customer managed alerts on there, your customers are going to be setting up those contacts themselves through the allocation viewer, so those should already be set up. But when you go into the alert section, supply event, in order to set these up, we've got two different types of alerts that need to be set up here. If you notice, there's a sold to manage flag on here. So if this flag is turned off, so for all terminals in this case, if it's turned off, if I edit this, you can choose internally who you want that to go to. These are just set up for these internal DTN people right now, including myself. But what that does is anytime an alert's created, in this case for all terminals, these people are going to be notified right away that a new, just what I said before, it's been created, when it starts, when it ends, things like that. So this is kind of an internal alert that needs to be set up. Now, if this sold to manage flag is turned on, what that actually does is, I'll pick up Amarillo here. What this does is it determines who has allocations at that terminal. Because if you set up an alert for in this case, Nick Lauer, he's got an alert set up. But if that particular sold to doesn't have allocations at that terminal, they're not going to get the alert. So there's an extra step there that checks to make sure they have allocations on that sold to before it sends out the alert itself. So once all of the contacts are set up and you set up the actual alert itself, both a sold to manage or a just a general internal one, you can do that also. Now, if you were going to set up an alert for terminal personnel, so you could, so they would get that, you could actually set that up as an one that's not sold to manage, where there's not a check mark. And one thing I do want to mention here is on all alerts, including the supply events, if you have alerts, there is a section under here for a language editor. And what you can do with this, if you don't know this already, is that you can change the alert that's being sent out from tabs, because there's a default. So if I go and pick one of the supply event alerts, supply event new alert, I hit search, there's an English one out there. And if you hit edit, you'll be able to change both, that you'll be able to change the subject, you'll be able to change the email text that's going out, including the fields that are being populated, from tabs itself. But this, like I said, you not only can do this on supply event alerts, but you could do this on any alert. So if you have an alert that's going out that you don't like the way it's exactly looked or the way it's worded, you can change that if you want. It has you can do a preview of kind of what it looks like, and then change it that way if you want. This comes in really helpful, especially on these supply event alerts, where you can change the wording if you want to. Now, these supply events, they are going to show up in a few different places, right? The alert's going to be sent out, which is either email or SMS, so they're going to get it that way. But if you're looking in tabs itself, there's a few places that it's going to show up. So under your allocation section, if you go, first of all, I'm going to say this, under the reports itself, if you go into product allocation reports, and I pull up that terminal, but I know there's supply outages at, say ABC Oil, I'm going to hit view report. I'm going to pull up all the allocations at this. We can see that there are supply outages for these particular products at the terminal. You can see gas, you can see distillate. So there is a terminal status of red in there because there's something up with that. With that, I believe it also shows under product manage when you go into there. I'm going to pick Amarillo. ABC Oil, so we can see the allocations that are set up there. And if we choose the particular allocation, when that option comes up to edit this allocation, you can see that there's a supply event there also. So you can see those on the screen within tabs. Now, again, they're also going to show on the allocation viewers themselves. I didn't have one of those that came up, but let me pull one up real quick. As we're looking at this, nope, maybe I won't be able to. But this will also show up on the allocation viewer. The way it shows up on the allocation viewer is there's going to be a box in there with a red color. And if they click on it, they'll be able to see the message. Is there any questions on that anybody has?
No, I don't.
If not, we can move on.
Pretty nice though.
Yeah, it will. Now, one thing with that supply events, again, it can send out a lot of alerts for this. Again, on the when it's created, when it's new, when it changes, and when it ends. Right, so it could send out a lot of alerts to your customers, but again, you can configure that under each one when you create it, that it doesn't have to send out all of those particular alerts. In this case, it defaults to being able to do a new days in advance event end and event start, but you can turn those off per alert if you want. So right when it's a new event, you can turn that off so it won't go out right when you create it, only right when it starts, or vice versa. You can do it when it's new, but not when it starts by turning that off. So there's a lot of configurability there. So one other place that these supply events show is on the Load Assistance dashboard, which I'm going to talk about next. The Load Assistance dashboard, if you don't have this already, it was created a while back for one customer that had a customer service department that they didn't want to give access to these customer service reps for all of tabs. They don't want them to go into allocations or GPOs or anything like that. So they only gave them access to the Load Assistance page. Now, the load assistance page itself is a way to troubleshoot when there's loading issues or something like that, or even just researching. Because what would happen in most cases when you're doing troubleshooting, you would come into reports. The first report you would probably run when troubleshooting is going to be a transaction logs pro report. So this is going to show you all the transactions that are coming through. It's going to show you if they were successful, whether they're denied, who was loading, what terminals they're loading at, so on and so forth. So that'd probably be the first place you'd go for troubleshooting. The Transaction Log Pro. The next thing you might do is you might go to a BOL viewer to see which BOLs have come through for that particular customer in the past. Because if they're getting denied at the rack right now, maybe there's, maybe their allocation's out or something, but you want to see what they've actually done in the past, like in the last day, to see if they've actually gotten loaded at all. So you can see those BOLs. You may do an allocations report in order to see what the particular allocation looked like, to make sure that they actually have allocations, something like that. And you also may, look to see if there's a GPO on there. So you go to the GPO report. So what the load assistance dashboard does is it takes that information from all those different reports, because when you're troubleshooting, it does take a little while to go from this report to another report, run it, export it, do filterings on it, things like that. So the load assistance dashboard is located under allocations, called load assistance. And what this does is it takes all that information and puts it onto one screen. So if I would pull up Amarillo, and I'm going to choose that ABC Oil again, since this is the demo account. What this is going to do, so if they weren't able to get loaded, you would first see on the first section on here that would come up is supply events, what we just talked about, right? So this is another place where those supply events are actually shown, and it will give you the details of those supply events. In this case, at Amarillo, both distillates and gasolines, there's a supply outage there out of gasoline. These are just tests, so it's not actually out. And if there's a supply event that says they're out, it will not stop them from loading. So if you, in this case, there's a supply event for gasoline. If they went to the terminal, they could still load gasoline. It just is just to let them know that, the supply event that it could be there. It's also going to, in the next section, is going to be the customer setup piece of it. Now it defaults to all auth options, resulting in a deny. That way, if there's a hard deny setup within tabs, you're going to see it right away. Now you can change this drop down to all auth options, so you can see all the allocations or the specific ones: credit and product, deny, no auth, one time, open. I'm just going to put all auth options. And what you're going to see is you're going to see the allocation headers that are in place for that particular customer at that terminal. In this case, you can see there's all terminals at ABC Oil for credit and product. There's 2 open allocations, and then there's another credit and product allocation at this terminal for this particular consignee group. So you can see the header there. The next section is going to be credit allocation. So you'd be able to see the credit allocations for that particular customer. In this case, for ABC Oil, they have a credit record. The credit limit is $400,000. They have unprocessed BOLs, in-process BOLs, and the remaining on there is $110,000. So they have credit, so they're going to be able to lift there. And then below that is going to be the product allocations. So you can see that for ABC Oil at Amarillo, we've got distillates, we've got gasoline. You can see each period, and you can see the remaining amount. And if you notice here, there's a remaining amount on this weekly allocation for distillates of negative. So that's probably one reason that they're getting denied for distillates at this particular terminal. Looks like they have plenty of gasoline, but you can see those right from this page, right? So everything's on the same page. Now, if you want to, you can actually create a GPO from this page also with this GPO button over here. And it doesn't allow you to add an amount. There's a configuration that allows you to say how much one load is worth. So if I click on the GPO button, it'll say, do you want to give them one load? and it will automatically create a GPO. So if I wanted to, I could just click on this, give them a GPO, and they would be able to lift gasoline, or sorry, distillate at that terminal. Now, it's also going to show all the GPOs that are in place. And as you can see, there is one here, Amarillo for ABC Oil for gasoline. There's a GPO for 7,000 gallons. So you'd be able to see that, and you'd be able to know that they, even though in this case they have remaining, but if there's an active GPO there, if this ever gets down to zero, if they load down to that, there's a GPO in place to give them a little bit extra. So you'd be able to see that. I don't have anything under this section for consignee load requests in the last 24 hours, but what this does is it'll show you any load requests in the last 24 hours, just like it says, that did not result in a BOL, which means that if there was a deny, like a hard deny, you would see it there. If the truck went into the rack and they carted in and they were currently loading, you would be able to see that a request for loading came in, but they haven't actually, the BOL hasn't come in yet. So you would be able to see that request, but there'd be no BOL with it. So you'd know probably that they were loading at that particular time. Once that BOL comes in, then it would go away from this particular section and go down below, where you can then see the consignee bill of lading history in the last 24 hours. So in this case, you can see all the BOLs that have came through. You see BOL number. You can see the terminal products that were lifted, C20, V2D, how much gross and net were actually lifted. So you can see that they lifted previously in the day, even though right now, they could be getting to deny. So this is all on the tab screen, right? So I know even our support group uses this load assistance page for troubleshooting sometimes when they're looking at it, just because everything is on one screen. And it's really nice to see that way. But with the load assistance, if you have that, you actually have access to a mobile version of this. Now you can bring this screen up with your cell phone and things like that, but it's not going to look the best, right? You're going to be pinching, you're going to be zooming, you're going to be moving the screen around in order to see this information, because this page within tabs is not mobile optimized. But there's a URL that's just for mobile login that you can use that is mobile optimized. So once you go into that, which is tabs.dtn.com/mobile, you log in with your normal tabs login, and you have two options there. You can either go to tabs or you can go to load assistance. Now the good thing about Chrome is I can emulate a phone basically. So this is what it would look like on an iPhone 12. So if I click on load assistance, that same information that we talked about earlier on the tabs page, the load assistance page, is also going to be here. So I'm going to select my terminal of Amarillo. I'm going to select the customer. And then I'm going to hit search. Now, what this does show that the load assistance doesn't have in tabs itself is these particular colors. So we can see that there are different colors here. For supply events, it's red. So you may have some supply events out there. In this case, this is the ones we looked at earlier, the distillates and the gasolines. You can see that information by bringing it down. And if we go back, we can see that customer setup, that same information. First, it's going to show the deny. And if nothing's there, you can choose it. You can see those same 4 allocation headers. 1 credit, 1 product, and 2 open that are set up. We go back, we can see credit allocation. So we could see the credit allocation for ABC Oil. That same information, credit limit, 400,000. You've got your unprocessed, your in process, and your total remaining credit there. And there is a credit decrement of 5,000 on there. So every time somebody loads, it goes 5,000 gallons. Your product allocation, the same detail is there. We've got 2 allocations, distillate and gasoline. We can see for it's active here. We can go through here and see the weekly active. It's negative. The remaining amount there, and then we can see your monthly. So you have your monthly allocation there. And then also the gasoline, you can see that, right? So, and again, this is supposed to emulate what a phone looks like. It's going to show any load requests in the last 24 hours. There's none here. But then also those BOLs that we showed earlier, you'll be able to see those BOL information on your phone also. If you're not in the office, you don't have access to a computer, you can do this from your phone. Now, the good thing about this also is you can also create GPOs from here. So if you go into those product allocations like I showed you, and you do gasoline,
He said that it shows that it's available.
locked up there for a second. Yeah, so there's a GPO button here that you can actually click on to give them a GPO from the Load Assistance dashboard. You can enter an amount, the different types of GPOs, incremental or borrowed, the effective dates, the expiration dates, and things like that. So you can give them a GPO right from the screen. So this is just a mobile optimized version of that Load Assistance dashboard, and it does come with the Load Assistance dashboard if you have it. It uses your same tabs login. It's just a different URL you would put in on your phone to show them. Let's see here. Any questions on Load Assistance dashboard or supply events? I think I went through a lot of this. If there's any questions on it, now would be the time.
No, Shannon, this is Jackie Reddington with
Hey, Jackie.
Patco. How are you?
Good.
I forwarded this invite to a few other people in our supply group that manage most of this, and I thought it would be very important for them to understand this since we have a lot of supply issues going on. But since we have so many supply issues going on right now, and they're not able to attend, so I'm sure they would have many questions. I don't have any because I don't, delve into the allocations that much. But I took a couple of screenshots and I'm going to pass it on to them. But one of the questions I did have is how do you get that what was it, the loading dashboard?
Which one?
Instead of giving users access to everything. Yeah, that load assistance. That's what it's called.
The Load Assistance
Load
dashboard.
assistance yeah. I don't have that.
Yeah, it is. It's an add-on module. So you would
Okay,
have to
okay.
subscribe to get that. So yeah.
Gotcha. What's the cost of that? Do you have any idea? Around about?
Michelle, do you want to answer that? I don't know if I don't have a cost. I don't have a cost right now, but it's by license, right? So you can do it.
Right. It's by license. You can do different bundles. It averages, I think, around $150 a user or so. But a lot of times we'll just sell them in bundles of a month, correct, per user. So,
Okay.
but a lot of times we'll put like bundles of 5 users or 10 users or whatever you need, and there's a little bit of a price break there.
Right.
And I will say that this is being recorded also. So as long as you've registered for it, we're going to send out that recording. So if you want to share that recording with your coworkers, you can do that so they can see this presentation.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
Okay. Any other questions? One came through the chat. Will Load Assistance show legacy credit?
It does. In this demo account, I just have our enhanced credit module, which is in dollars. So that's what we're showing here. Here, I guess it is. So this is in dollars. It's 400,000 US dollars. It will show our legacy credit, which is in volume or loads, and that same information is shown.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your time today. As Shannon mentioned, we will be sending out an email in the next day or so with the rebroadcast link. And certainly, if any questions pop up between then and now, feel free to reach out to your rep or to Shannon.
Yep. Yeah.
Michelle,
And
anything else from you?
if your supply groups do have questions, yeah, feel free to send those over to me and I can answer any of those questions that I do have.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.
Thank
Bye.
you.